Welcome to Partnerships for Profit, the podcast where we bring you inside the world of joint ventures, strategic partnerships, and powerful collaborations. Each episode, you'll dive into conversations with top entrepreneurs, visionaries, and business leaders, unlocking the secrets to building profitable relationships that drive growth and success. Whether you're looking to expand your network, find new referral partners, or scale your business, you're in the right place. Let's get started.
Welcome to Partnerships for Profit, presented by Leduc Entertainment. Today, we are joined by Lee Rudin, who is the founder and lead attorney at Rudin Law. Lee, welcome to the show.
Thank you for having me, Adrian. Happy to be here.
I love your tagline, "Stop being polite, get rude." That is awesome.
That's it.
Well, can you tell us a little bit about yourself and tell us a little bit about Rudin Law?
Sure. As you said, my name's Lee Rudin. I am originally from New Jersey. I came down to New Orleans 20 years ago now, or almost 20 years ago now. I came down to go to Tulane, and I joked that the gumbo must have gotten my blood. I actually came down the day before Hurricane Katrina. So we evacuated with, many others in this city. I was gone for that first semester, came back to school January of 2006, and I've never left. When you look to find a job here, they question, the locals question you as to why you want to be here, right? They're used to people coming and taking what they want and leaving. And I said, I had to repeat this over and over, but every time there's been an opportunity for me to leave, I've stayed, right? I could have cut and run when the storm knocked out my first semester. I could have cut and run when it was time to leave the city after graduating from undergrad. I stayed. And then I graduated law school and I stayed again. So, at a point, you got to stop listening to what people say and look at what they do.
Right. I was going to say, I'm a Tulane man myself. Roll wave.
Roll wave. Roll wave, get rude,
That's it. Well, can I ask you a question? So the people that you help when they come to Rudin Law, what are some of the pain points and problems that they're experiencing that you're helping them resolve?
So the bread and butter of our practice is personal injury. So when I have a team of 7 and myself, and I tell my team, you got to assume that people are coming to you on their worst day. Right. It might be the worst day of the month, the year, their life, but they're not coming to you because they want to. They're coming to you because they have to. We're not a trust and estate law firm where someone's trying to protect their assets and they're being proactive about what they're doing. No. People are being reactive. Something has happened to them, and so they're coming to you for help. Sometimes they come to us because something happened that they caused, and they don't realize that, where there really isn't anything we can do in terms of getting them compensation, but we can guide them on what they should do to protect themselves. Like, if this was your fault, go tell your insurance company. That's why you have insurance. Let your insurance company handle it. If you have questions, come back to us. So, the pain point on either side is the same. They got hurt, they hurt somebody else, and now they have this totally unforeseen environment in front of them. Right. They might be hurt. They might have a vehicle that is damaged and undrivable, and now they have transportation issues. They might have lost wage issues because they're either going to medical treatment or they don't have a vehicle to get to work. So it runs the gamut, but the consistent theme is that they need help. This is probably not, this may be their first rodeo, or if it isn't, it's maybe just their second or third, and they don't really know the lay of the land, or they're not that familiar, definitely not as familiar as we are. So we try to unburden them. We try to take the aggravation off their plate. It can't always be 100%, right? Like I tell the client, first of all, I never want to take money out of your property damage, because you need it to fix your vehicle. So they're probably going to undercut you anyway, because the second you take a car off the lot, it loses value. So you're probably not going to get every penny you want out of it, even if we tried our hardest. And if I take a fee out of that, then how are you going to fix your vehicle? So I try to avoid that. We take our fees out of the bodily injury damages, which oftentimes aren't directly dollar for dollar related to an expense. It's this amorphous idea. So we try to make sure that we can do right by them, get them in a rental vehicle if they need it, get their car inspected, get them to the first line of medical treatment. Maybe they went to the hospital. Maybe they need to go see a chiropractor, a physical therapist, an orthopedist, a mental health professional. Whatever it is, I tell my team, you got to pry a little bit, because just because they say it's this issue, there might be something else underlying it. So ask questions, listen, and try to help them by taking the aggravation off their plate. So get them healthy. And, for example, I was talking about the property damage. I can't tell an insurance company where your vehicle is. Right. I don't know where it is all the time. So I might have to tell the insurance company, hey, contact my client. You can talk to them only about this, but you can talk to them about their body shop of choice or where you can go inspect the vehicle. Because otherwise we're playing a game of telephone and you're not, it's totally inefficient.
Right. It's just a big runaround right at that point.
To run around every which direction, right? Yeah. You're trying to call the insurance company. They're trying to call you. You're trying to call the client. Why don't we just put the right people on the phone with each other?
Can you talk a little bit about some of the common mistakes you see your clients making when dealing with the insurance companies?
The most common mistake, and I have fun with my Instagram, Facebook, social media presence. I have fun with it because I feel like if you don't have fun with it, it can be a real chore. But I said this in jest, and I mean it. The Allstates, right? You're in good hands. State Farm, like a good neighbor. They're not.
Right.
If they were, I wouldn't have a business. But whether it's a hurricane that knocks out somebody's house or a car accident that knocks out their vehicle and then their physical well-being, if the insurance companies paid what they owed up front, I wouldn't have a business.
Right.
But they don't. So what you need to understand as the person involved in an accident is that the person you're talking to has a job to do. And that job is to serve their employer, whose job, they're an investment company. Insurance companies are an investment company. They take your premiums and they want to make money on that money. The longer they hold it, the better they earn. So they're not trying to write you checks any sooner than they have to.
Yeah.
Otherwise, they would say, hey, we'll pay all the doctors. You're going for treatment, we'll pay them all. So I guess the long and the short of it is the consistent theme is that don't take everything for face value when you talk to the insurance companies. I highly recommend you talk to a lawyer first. You can notify the insurance company what happened, especially if you're not at fault. You got rear-ended. You're not going to get yourself in too much trouble.
Right.
The second you start saying, oh, I feel 100% fine or this or that, because people do it at the accident scene, right? They're reporting no injuries because they don't want to go take an ambulance and incur a $10,000 debt when they might be hurt. They just don't know it yet because it takes time sometimes for these injuries to percolate, for lack of a better word.
Right.
Just think of the old adage, right? Everything you say can and will be used against you in a court of law.
Absolutely.
Those calls are not just being recorded for quality assurance purposes.
Right. Well, and I can definitely see, I can see that there being some type of a scenario where somebody gets into an accident, tells the insurance company, oh, I'm fine. Their adrenaline's going, I'm okay. And then, a day later, oh, I can't move my neck. And, they call up the insurance company and it's, well, you said a day ago you were fine, those immediate things, I guess, are probably pretty important. I'm wondering when you go to handle a situation with an insurance company, is your approach sort of a one size fits all blanket approach, or do you have to kind of custom tailor your approach and strategy depending on the individual case?
Well, I think everything has to be tailored, right? There are best practices, but every case is unique. And anybody that tells you otherwise is being deceitful. There are general rules of the road, right? Like I can tell if a certain insurance company is the insurer of a certain type of vehicle, I'm going to know, well, that policy is going to be a low minimum, state minimum policy.
Right.
That might guide my advice to the client because, for example, if you go to the doctor too much or you go get an MRI it is going to cut into your ultimate recovery. Now, this isn't a get rich quick scheme, and everybody is going to want to get better. But at the same time, they do want to be compensated for the inconvenience and the pain. They don't want to settle a case and only pay the doctors and lawyers. That's not the idea. And my mentality, and I tell this to the client, is that at the end of the day, you're the one that got hurt. Right. I'm providing a service, a professional service, and I don't want you leaving at the end of this case and thinking, I got screwed by the guy that hit me, screwed by the doctor, and then screwed again by the lawyer.
Right.
We're a reputation business, and so I strongly believe in, doing what's right and making sure that the client walks away at least saying that lawyer had my best interest at heart and he did right by me.
Right.
So, is it a one size fits all? Absolutely not. Where there are best practices, there are rules of the road. We've got oodles of experience to tell somebody, hey, this is how I think it's going to go. But every adjuster handles things differently. Sometimes you got to, get rude with the fists. but sometimes I joke, it's not be rude, it's get rude. Sometimes you get more bees with honey. And so you have to be adept at doing both, being tough. But sometimes that's not what's necessary to get the job done. And this, again, we're trying to get to the resolution.
Right. Well, and I think that all feeds in perfectly to this concept of you describe your approach to law as emphasizing personalized attention and aggressive advocacy. And I was hoping if you could speak a little bit more about those 2 points and how those really, impact your approach to your practice.
Sure. So, when I say aggressive advocacy, I like to kind of use the more wordy description, is that I want to know what the client needs, what their goals are. That comes with good communication. It doesn't always come through me, right? I have a team. If I answered every phone call, every text message, every email, I would literally get nothing done on anybody's case. I would just be answering phone calls and emails. And so that doesn't work well for the client either. So, I tell them, look, sometimes you're going to have to get information or give information to my team, but the buck stops with me. Right. So if you want to talk to me, you'll talk to me. We might have to schedule the call, schedule the meeting, but I'm here. We can talk anytime. And in terms of being aggressive, I want to be aggressive with my communication to the client. The last thing I want to hear is that they left my office, went to another firm because we weren't being responsive to them. Right. I can't turn water into wine sometimes, and I can't make things move faster than they move in the ordinary course of things. But I can make sure that we are responsive to the questions being asked, even if the answer is, I can't give you that answer right now.
Right.
Now, then, of course, there's the literal aggressiveness, which is if a insurance company is telling us that the sky is green, we're going to tell them, screw you. We know it's not. Right. We'll go file the lawsuit. We'll take it out of your hands. Now it's in the hands of an attorney or, 12 angry men or women if we, take it all the way down the line.
Now, are there any other mistakes, not just in dealing with the insurance? I know we talked about mistakes in dealing with the insurance companies post a car accident, but are there any other mistakes that you see people making kind of post car accidents, things like maybe not documenting the scene enough? Are there any other mistakes that you see people making, and how can those be prevented?
Sure. Well, I'm going to take it a step further. I'm going to go back before the accident.
Yeah.
Okay. So there's plenty of things people do because they're not lawyers and they don't do this all the time. So they're not out there saying, I'm the sleuth. I have to take this picture. I have to do this thing. But I get a lot of cases where somebody says, oh, it was a hit and run, or we find out that the guy that hit them gave insurance and it was a fake insurance card, or it had been canceled, or a variety of things have happened. It was an excluded driver. All of that is a problem. It's terrible to tell a client, hey, that injury and the property damage you sustained that wasn't your fault, you're up the creek without a paddle. That other driver didn't have insurance, you're screwed.
Yeah.
That's awful. What can my clients do before they even get to me? And this I've said in a million videos, and I cannot beat it into anybody's head enough. Go get uninsured, underinsured motorist coverage. It's going to raise your premiums 20, 30, 40, 50 bucks a month. I know that that's not easy to come by for people, but the whole point of insurance is to have it for the rainy day, when God forbid happens. So this type of insurance steps in the shoes of the no insurance driver, the low insurance driver, the excluded driver, you name it. All these issues I just addressed with you that occur after an accident. Right. If you're proactive, all of a sudden you're protecting yourself. I got a wreck a year and a half ago now.
Oh, wow.
And luckily we had the uninsured motorist coverage because the gal that hit us out of state, their minimum coverage was 25 grand. Well, we had injuries that for my wife and I far surpassed 25 grand, 50 grand. But we had uninsured motorist coverage. So now it's just a matter of let's go get our treatment that we need. And then we'll address it with first their insurance company and then our own.
Right. Now, did that kind of very firsthand personal experience going through an auto accident affect your approach to how you handle clients or those who have been in similar accidents?
So I don't want to say that specifically did, because I've had so much experience with this space, right? I represented defense. I was on the defense, represented companies and insurance companies for a long time before I organically grew this personal injury practice and realized I much prefer helping the individual than the company trying to undercut them. But what I think gave me more pertinent experience is I had hurt my back exercising probably about 5-6 years ago and had to go through the whole process. The chiropractor, the physical therapist, the neurosurgeon, the injections. Now we didn't get to the point of surgery, but it was recommended at the time. And I said, I'm young. I don't want to do that. I want to run this through. But by doing all of that, I got to see, what each of the procedures was like. And now I can explain to a client, oh, you're afraid of needles. Well, let me explain to you what this is like so that you understand it's not everything you think it is. In fact, some of it I felt was a nothing burger. Had I known that that's what this was, I would have been a better lawyer then, as good as I am now.
Now, Rudin Law practices and handles cases in both Texas and Louisiana, correct?
Correct.
And do you find, are there any challenges in operating across state lines? I mean, especially with, Louisiana having the Napoleonic Code in place?
So I'll be honest with you. I am a newly barred attorney in Texas. Mm-hmm. And it was just a goal of mine that I had said for years, more so when I was on the defense side. I said, the only state that we can waive into from Louisiana is Texas. I should do that. That'll allow me to practice there if I want and develop different clients. And then as luck would have it, I ended up moving towards a more individualized practice with, people, not companies. And it's funny because since I've become barred in Texas, I haven't actively practiced there, but I was practicing there on a pro hoc vice waiver before that, which was interesting. So yeah, the laws are different. And I think that, even in the state, even in Louisiana, you can get home cooked. If you're from New Orleans and you go down to Bayou or you go up to Shreveport, you can get home cooked just because you're not the guy from there. So you got to look, you asked about personalized attention. You got to look at the case. If you have a big case and you're in Baton Rouge, maybe you want to go get somebody who's intimately familiar with the Baton Rouge juries, the Baton Rouge judges who practices there all the time to tag team it with you, no matter how capable you are. And that's just a strategy play. That's like when you pick who the best doctor might be to treat the person. Well, that might be based on their skill set, their personality. So one size shouldn't fit all because we're all different. All of our cases are different. And so I think that you think about the jurisdiction, Texas, Louisiana, the different parishes in the state, and that should tailor your approach because you want to be receiver oriented. So if you got to think about who's the jury going to be, who's the judge going to be, is this person going to play well in front of that crowd? Some yes, some no.
And for our listeners who may not know, I know this might be a loaded question, but could you kind of briefly explain Napoleonic Code and how that's different and how that affects your practice?
Sure. So the best way I can describe it, and it's a little off-putting to, I'll call them foreign, but non-Louisiana lawyers, is first of all, we've got funny language. So like a contract is called an obligation under the civil code, right? The Napoleonic Code is the civil code. But some of that can just be figured out by some sort of chart. Hey, and here we call it prescription. You know it as the statute of limitations. Our prescriptive deadline is that phrase. Right. Not that complicated. But I think what's most different is that in other states, the law evolves through judicial decisions. Right? That's called precedent. Mm-hmm. So, big cases that get decided before you, they're going to guide the current state of the law. Here, the statute, the code, that controls. So your analysis goes back to the language in the statute. Now, yeah, you look at cases and they interpret the law, but they are not the law. They're just interpretations of the law, and you want to persuade a judge or a jury that what the case says is the way it should be interpreted. Although if that differs from the statute, the judge can look back to the statute and says, that's not what that says.
Right.
So, there are principles in Louisiana that get you closer to precedent. I remember working a case years ago, and it was called jurisprudence constante. It means there's such a line of cases that we should be looking at it and giving it the credence it deserves because it's been going on for so long. It's probably the way this should be interpreted.
Right.
So.
Well, and we've spoken a little bit about your practice and about Rudin Law. I'd like to shift the conversation a little bit. I'd like to speak a little bit about you. What inspired you to get into the personal injury space?
So I was a lawyer for a dozen years before I started this firm. And I was doing the same kind of work, but on the other side. So people that had been injured in car accidents, slip and falls. I was handling some business-to-business disputes. Most of them were insurance-oriented. I was just representing the company either through their self-insurance or through an insurance policy. So all I did was say, I want to do this work for the person that got hurt. And It wasn't intentional. It started organically. I helped some people that I knew, who told some people that they knew that I did good work for them and that I was trustworthy. And then I started getting cases that came to me first, in the first instance, but also where people were disenchanted with their lawyer and were looking for another set of eyes. And so I would explain to them what I thought. Mm-hmm. I'm not in the business of telling people to fire their lawyer. I wouldn't want that to happen to me, but I would present them with, how I thought this should be handled and what they should go back and ask. In terms of maybe missing information. And if the information that they got told me that the lawyer was doing a good job and the cases were getting settled in the right range for what the insurance was and the injuries were, I'm going to tell them, I think your lawyer, you might not like the answer, but I think they're giving you the right answer. Right. There were other instances where the lawyers weren't calling them back. They were only talking to a staff member. They could never see the lawyer. That's wrong. Right? You don't hire somebody's assistant. You don't hire their paralegal. You hire the lawyer. Of course, they have to have a team, but at some point, you should be able to talk to the person who's the ultimate decision maker on your case besides you. So it grew organically while I was at a defense firm. And then a little over 18 months ago, we had a conversation. They said, we love what you're doing from, a business growth standpoint for you, but it's just not what we are. And we got to change what's going on. And I said, I'm liking what I'm doing. And I decided I was going to figure out how to do it on my own.
When you think back on all the clients that you have helped, is there a story that really stands out in your mind of someone that you saw a positive outcome or a transformation in as a result of Rudin Law's help and guidance? Could you share a story with us?
So I'm going to give you just kind of a vague one, and then I'll get specific.
Sure.
So vaguely, or broadly, I should say, what you need to understand is that for a lot of people, because they're coming to you on their worst day, and now you've told them you got to go to the doctor routinely, when maybe they never went to the doctor routinely, and they're in pain, you would not believe how much just getting to a resolution changes the whole mindset. Right. They're not thinking about the case. They're not thinking about the treatment. There's the idea that there's the power of positive thinking. Well, sometimes being in the midst of this terrible event and having to relive it all the time because you're not through it, there's great value in just getting through it. Maybe they didn't make the princely sum they want or the pot of gold at the end of the rainbow, but they're done. And it's better to be done with what they got than to be chasing more and it never ends. So there's that. That happens all the time. But then I have a specific case that I've recounted before. A woman, a lovely woman, older, probably a little older than my mom, probably between my mom and my grandma. House got terribly damaged in Hurricane Ida. The insurance company really thought that she was pulling a fast one. They thought that she didn't have the damage that she claimed, and that the public adjuster and the water mitigation company took her for a ride. And they wanted to depose everybody, and they were really beating us up. And eventually we took our licks and we got through it, and we got her a chunk of change because we showed this lady didn't have anything to do with what you believe was wrong, that she had storm damage and you should pay her. And they figured out that the calculus made sense to write this woman a check as opposed to trying to take this case to trial and spending oodles of money that they probably weren't going to win on. And when we got the case resolved, I remember her reaching out to me the next day, and said, Lee, I thanked you yesterday, but you have no idea how well I slept last night. And it kind of dovetails what we started with, which is she didn't make a king's ransom. She got enough money to fix her house. We knew what the number was. We worked backwards to get her there. And then she was able to just put her head on the pillow and rest easy, knowing that the stress and the anxiety of the what if was done.
Right.
Now it was just, how are we going to spend the money? What fixes am I going to make? What comes first? That aggravation. But I'm out of that one. That's you and the contractor.
I mean, that's incredible. And you're not only helping people, through Rudin Law and your practice, you're also helping people via the things that you post on social media. You're pretty active in social media. Can you tell us a little bit about that space and how you're engaging the community there?
So we are in a crowded space, the personal injury space, a ton of lawyers, big lawyers, billboards and TV. And I'm new, at least new in this firm. And part of my mentality is get out there, be different, have fun with it, because it can be a chore. A lot of lawyers do not want to post. They don't want to do videos. They don't want to do any of it. I happen to like it. As you see, I'm chatting with you voluntarily, right? But so my thought process is get out there, have fun with it, be silly, try to entertain people. And then in that, educate them. Now, not everything is going to be educational, but we're doing these little skits called Who Wants to Sue an Insurance Company? It's Who Wants to Be a Millionaire? And I play both sides, right? I'm the host, the game show host, in this terrible jacket and outfit. And then I play a character we make up on the other side in some other funny getup. But the questions that get asked, right? It's just one question that I'm asking myself. The questions that get asked are giving you a piece of information that you probably want to listen to.
Right.
Or a misconception that we've heard that we're now trying to shine the light on, so that if somebody actually watches and listens, they'll leave a little bit better. This conversation, if they heard what I said about uninsured motorist coverage, they've probably heard me say it 6 different times. But maybe it takes that many times for them to finally open the app, click through, bite the bullet, put the credit card down, and put that on their policy, so that, God forbid, the accident happens. They come to me and I say, guys, I'm so glad you listened. And it happened. I had a client, he came to me one time, didn't have it, put it on his policy, came back to me a second time months later.
Oh, there you go.
And we collected another couple grand for him because he had it. He deserved it and he had it.
Well, Lee, this has been an awesome conversation, really informative. If anybody out there listening could use the help of Rudin Law or would like to follow you on social media, where can the people find you?
All right, we try to make it easy for everybody. We are Rudin Law. Our catchphrase is, if you're tired of getting pushed around by insurance companies, stop being polite, get rude. So it's getrude.com. Our handle on social media is Get Rude Law. Instagram, easy to find us. Facebook, we're out there. TikTok, you can find me on LinkedIn. Our phone number is 504-500-5504. And our office, the office I'm sitting in right now, is on Veterans Boulevard in Metairie, Louisiana, right outside of New Orleans. We got free parking. We're in the BJ's Pawn Shop building. We are between the Chick-fil-A that has a line out the door every day for lunch and the Total Wine. So you really can't miss us between Cleary and Causeway. If you need us, if you just want to ask us a question, please feel free to give us a call. Follow us on social media. Shoot me an email, lee@getrude.com.
Well, Lee, this has been an awesome conversation. Thank you again. And thank you, everyone, for listening. This has been Partnerships for Profit presented by Leduc Entertainment. Thanks again, Lee.
Thank you, Adrian. Appreciate you.
Thanks for joining us on this episode of Partnerships for Profit. We hope you've gained valuable insights on how to form profitable partnerships and take your business to the next level. Be sure to subscribe and leave us a review wherever you listen to podcasts so you never miss an episode. Got a partnership story to share or someone you'd like to see featured on the show? Reach out to us. Until next time, keep building those partnerships for profit.